2019 has surely been a wild year for Huawei, and I'm not only talking about the US ban, we have to give them a lot of credit for their technological advancements. They really delivered in terms of cameras, their new Kirin 990 chipset, 5G, and even design. But all these things usually come with the Pro versions of their flagships, the P series and Mate series devices, often leaving the standard versions untouched by reviewers. And that's not to say people don't care about these. I mean, why wouldn't they? The standard non-pro versions of these flagships are typically several thousands of pesos cheaper while still providing a lot of features. So in light of that sort of underdog spirit, in this review we're checking out the standard Huawei Mate 30, what chops it's got, and the state of Huawei's software roadblock as of November in 2019. But let's take it one step at a time. Starting with design, while the Mate 30 Pro isn't exactly a mirror of the Mate 20 Pro's original design, only having some hints, the standard Mate 30 is actually closer to its predecessor. It's got that really hefty, tough feel to it that the Mate 20 Pro famously had. While the Mate 30 Pro is sleek and curvy, this one's no frills, all business. The rounded edges and the curvature on the glass back panel are just enough to make your one-handed grip quite comfortable, while the front panel is straight up flat. By the way, take note of the size difference between the Mate 30 and Mate 30 Pro. The former is actually bigger at 6.62 inches compared to 6.53. We still get that iconic red tinted power button on the right side along with a physical volume rocker. The left side contains the card tray for a single nano SIM and a Huawei nano memory card. Up top we get the secondary microphone and an IR blaster, which is pretty neat. Down at the bottom, missing from the Pro model, we get a headphone jack along with the USB-C port, main microphone, and loudspeaker. At the back is the famous circular washing machine triple lens camera module that Huawei says is inspired by Leica's traditional cameras. Say what you will, but it's now an iconic design feature that embodies the look and the feel of the Mate series. It does give the phone a bit of a camera bump, but you won't really get much wobble when placed on a table due to its circumference, thickness, and center placement. Now checking out the display, we get a 6.62-inch Full HD Plus OLED panel with support for HDR10 and the DCI-P3 color space. This is all fine and dandy since the screen is stunning on its own with sharp details, vivid colors, and deep contrast, and good outdoor visibility, but this is where we run into our first software problem. I'll say it now before we get into the software part. Yes, we are still able to sideload Google Play services. However, as of right now, the Netflix app does not work with the Mate 30 and Mate 30 Pro. Sure, you still do get access to other video platforms like YouTube, but after all, isn't media consumption the reason why we critique a phone's display? My point is this. No matter how great this phone's display is, what does it matter if I can't use an app that comprises about 30% of my screen time? But I digress, I'm not everybody. And if you out there watching personally don't use Netflix a lot, then you should be fine. Moving on, checking out audio, of course we got a headphone jack that's missing from the Pro version, so it might be a no-brainer for wired headphone users. And as for speakers, it uses a stereo setup comprised of the downward firing loudspeaker and the earpiece above the display notch. It does create the stereo effect, but only very slightly. If you were to cover the bottom speaker with your hand, you won't really hear that much sound coming from the earpiece. As a pair though, it can get loud, mids and highs are clear, and there's some depth but only very slightly. As a smartphone speaker, I'd say it's just average. Alright, checking out the internals, the Mate 30 is powered by the Kirin 990 7nm chipset with the Mali G76 MP16 GPU, along with 8GB of RAM and 128GB of UFS 3.0 storage. Needless to say, this phone is a beast at raw performance. It's very fast and snappy and can take on a lot of heavy apps without breaking a sweat. The Mali G76 is a 16-core GPU, so heavy graphics workloads like playing games like Call of Duty or Mobile Legends is no issue at all. Our benchmark scores over here back that up if you guys are interested in seeing specific numbers. Providing power is a 4200 mAh battery with support for 40W supercharge and 27W fast wireless charging. It's got a slightly smaller capacity than the Mate 30 Pro, but that's okay since battery life is still great. In our standard video loop test, we got 21 hours and 34 minutes of playback. In day-to-day use, it's actually possible to stretch the battery life to 2 days if you use the device moderately. But even if you did need to charge, it's no problem at all as long as you have access to a supercharged charger. It's just so fast. We tested Huawei's claim of 70% in 30 minutes, but it actually exceeded this for us, reaching 73% in the same amount of time. Alright, so the big one. Software. The Mate 30 runs on EMUI 10, which is based on Android 10. The look and feel of the UI is pretty much similar to the previous EMUI 9, but with some visual tweaks. So yes, Google mobile services are not pre-installed. To recap, these are apps and services provided by Google under license with any Android-based OS. With our Mate 30 Pro from before, we were able to sideload the Google Play Store app using the LZ Play method we showed in this video. But right now, that method no longer works. We were still able to get the Play Store though using a PC program called HiSuite to restore certain system settings that allow us to use LZ Play once again. We'll have a link in the description down below to an article from XDA developers on how to do this process. So yeah, on our Mate 30, we were able to get the Google Play Store. Social media apps work, Mobile Legends works, Call of Duty works. So far, only Netflix was not supported. Which brings me to something I've been saying ever since the trade ban came along. Are users willing to accept methods like this as a band-aid solution with no certainty of your favorite apps being supported? Right now, the Netflix app isn't working. What if tomorrow Facebook is no longer supported? Or Gmail? Or Google itself? Sure, it's not much of an inconvenience to sideload Google Play services, but in the grand scheme of things, you're taking a big risk if you decide to get a Huawei phone as your daily driver nowadays because of the uncertainty. That is, of course, if you are banking on Google. Huawei does have their own app gallery that has some commonly used apps, but then again, this is also dependent on other factors, such as Huawei's ability to garner support from developers. It's a perfect example of how Google services, a feature that most people take for granted, can affect a good Android phone's marketability. So that's our 2 cents on that. Now checking out a feature that Huawei flagships are highly regarded for, the cameras. So while the P30 Pro is more photo-centric and the Mate 30 Pro is more video-centric, the Mate 30 and, well, the P30 for that matter, are more vanilla in their camera capabilities. That means we don't get super fancy features like 50x digital zoom or 7680 FPS super slow-mo video, but we do still get good hardware. For the rear, that's a 40 megapixel main, 16 megapixel ultra-wide, and an 8 megapixel telephoto with 3x optical zoom. Up front is a 24 megapixel selfie shooter along with a time-of-flight camera for face unlock. Without a doubt, all 3 rear cameras take great photos. The AI scene detection works very fast and has a sizable database of known subjects, which is very useful since the post-processing can better apply the appropriate exposure and saturation settings. Overall though, with regards to the camera software, it's distinctly Huawei. Shots are sharpened quite a bit, while color and contrast are also boosted. However, it manages to make your subjects look pleasing despite not being exactly natural looking or true to life. The main camera shots are particularly sharp thanks to the high-resolution sensor, but generally, even when shooting with the ultra-wide and telephoto cameras, the look of the photos are very consistent. The ultra-wide lens provides an awesomely huge field of view without too much distortion, and the telephoto lens gets up to 3x optical zoom, 5x hybrid zoom, and 30x digital zoom. Quality naturally scales down the farther you zoom in, but the software does kick in and try its best to sharpen the shot. For selfies, the device handles them quite well. Colored objects in frame get a bit of a saturation boost, but skin tones are well preserved and natural looking. The same goes for the rear cameras when you take photos of other people. Speaking of that, checking out portrait mode, it does a great job with subject background separation, as well as providing an accurate bokeh effect. It doesn't just blindly blur out whatever's behind the subject, but also takes distance into account as a deciding factor for blur intensity. As for low light, which as we know is an area where Huawei cameras shine, we get exactly what's expected. Even without night mode, shots don't come out too noisy, while details and colors are still for the most part preserved. Now for reference, here's a shot of the Skyway with night mode turned off, and here's the same shot with night mode turned on. The bloom from the lights in the back is a lot more pronounced, the LED billboard way back in the distance isn't so blown out anymore, and take a look at the roofs on the lower right side. In the normal shot, it's almost pitch black. But with night mode on, the detail is now starting to show. And all of this is expected. After all, Huawei is one of the industry leaders when it comes to low-light photography. For videos, we can shoot up to 4K at 60 FPS for the rear and up to 1080p at 30 FPS for the front. Video quality almost closely matches what we get from the photos with similar sharpening and saturation boosts. Stabilization is also very good. And I'm not really the kind of guy that gets into built-in filters a lot when looking at phones' cameras, but the ones on Huawei's video mode are actually really cool, especially this AI color one. And based on all of this, the cameras, there is actually still some merit to getting a Mate 30. Software is important, but it's not the only thing that makes up a phone. But the question is, are the cameras enough of a redeeming factor that it trumps the lack of official Google services? For some people, this may be the case. But that's not only the positive factor, of course. The The phone has got a good display, great performance, long battery life, and a decent price. 34,990 pesos. That's a whole 16,000 pesos cheaper than the Mate 30 Pro. And for that much less, it's still a well-rounded, well-executed smartphone. So in sum, I can recommend the Mate 30, but only to those who are willing to take the risk. If you're not that type of person though, then you'll want to think really hard on whether or not the phone's good qualities will fill the hole left in the smartphone experience left by the lack of Google. Alright, that was our full review of the Huawei Mate 30. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below, and if you enjoyed this video, please do drop a like, subscribe to our channel for more content, hit the bell icon to receive future uploads, and be sure to visit yugatech.com for the latest tech news and reviews. This has been Joey, and I'll see you guys in the next one.